Good morning. This is Pat Swanner, and I'm the women's pastor here at Refuge Ministries. And I'm bringing you our Lent Devotional today. And I'm going to ask you a question. Have you ever been tested? Have you ever been tested by God? Where it seems like God's working in an area and it's confusing to you that you're being tested. Maybe you're trying to pay off a debt and things start breaking, your car needs repairs, kids need braces, and you're wondering, well, what is God doing? I'm trying to get debt free so I can serve Him better. And well, I'm going to tell you, you are not alone. There are several accounts in the Bible of God testing His people. And we're going to be looking at one of those today, and it's Abraham. Now, Abraham was called to a country that God was going to show him, and God told him he was going to be the father of many nations. And so Abraham and his wife Sarah waited a long time. In fact, Abraham was 100 years old when his child was born, his son Isaac. He was the child of promise. And then we come to the account of God testing Abraham, and we can find that account in Genesis chapter 22 verses 1 through 12. And I'm reading from the New Living Translation. It says, "Sometimes later God tested Abraham's faith. 'Abraham,' God called. 'Yes,' he replied, 'here I am.' 'Take your son, your only son, yes, Isaac, whom you love so much, and go to the land of Moriah. Go and sacrifice him as a burnt offering on one of the mountains that I will show you.' The next morning," notice that Abraham didn't linger, he was immediately obedient. "The next morning, Abraham got up early. He saddled his donkey and took 2 of his servants with him, along with wood for a fire and for the burnt offering, and set out for the place God had told him about. On the 3rd day of their journey, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. 'See here with the donkey,' Abraham told the servants. 'The boy and I will travel a little further. We will worship there, and then we will come right back.' So Abraham placed the wood for the burnt offering on Isaac's shoulders, while he himself carried the fire and the knife. As the 2 of them were walking on together, Isaac turned to Abraham and said, 'Father?' 'Yes, my son,' Abraham replied. 'We have the fire and the wood.' The boy said, 'But where is the sheep for the burnt offering?' 'God will provide a sheep for the burnt offering, my son,' Abraham answered, and they walked on together. When they arrived at the place where God had told him to go, Abraham built an altar and arranged the wood on it. Then he tied his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on top of the wood." Now that's interesting, because at this time, Isaac was about 25 years old, and he allowed himself to be tied up and placed on the altar. Abraham picked up the knife to kill his son as a sacrifice. At that moment, the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven, "Abraham, Abraham." "Yes," Abraham replied, "here I am." "Don't lay a hand on the boy," the angel said. "Do not hurt him in any way, for now I know that you truly fear God. You have not withheld from me even your son, your only son." Abraham was going to sacrifice his son for God. God didn't want Isaac to die. In fact, he wanted Abraham, though, to sacrifice Isaac in his heart, so it could be clear that Abraham loved God more than he loved his promised and long-awaited son. The sacrifice of Isaac was a picture of the greatest act of worship. It was the supreme test of Abraham's faith to offer up Isaac as a burnt offering. This is a clear foreshadowing of the death of God's only well-beloved Son, Jesus, on the cross. Is God asking you to sacrifice something in your heart for Him? Is He testing you? Be obedient. His testing is to strengthen your character and deepen your commitment to Him.